Hello and welcome to the Doctor Who Show's hot take for Doctor Who Season 2, Episode 3, The Well. I'm Rob.
I'm Dave.
And tonight, Dave, we've downed another episode in the new season. First episode, we were so-so on. Second episode, we both quite liked. So let's not bury the lead. Where were you at with this one?
Gee, Rob.
We could do Word of the Week if you like first.
Yeah, let's do Word of the Week first, because I've still got to put my thoughts together.
Right, okay. Do you have a Word of the Week?
My Word of the Week is return.
Return. My Word of the Week is phantom.
Okay.
Has that given you enough time to think about the episode?
I think... Okay, let me start with the really basic, obvious, easy one.
Yes.
Did I enjoy watching this episode? The answer is yes.
Yeah, that's where I was pushing, really.
Was I increasingly frustrated as I watched, and did that in the end detract from it? The answer is also yes. Ooh. I don't think it was as good as it could have been, but there is no doubt that the first three of Series 2 are comfortably stronger than the first three of Series 1.
You think so?
And not like for like, I'm saying as a mass of 3 episodes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying one was better than one and two was two, but I'm saying as a collection of 3 intro episodes, I am much happier with where this season is than where that we were at the end of the first 3 last time.
Okay, because when we got to the third one in Season 1, we hit Boom, and I quite liked Boom. I can't remember what you thought of it, though.
Yeah, look, I liked Boom. This is probably comparable to Boom.
Okay.
But 2 was way better than Devil's Court, and 1 was superior to Space Babies, and this is at least as good, if not maybe better than Boom. Hard to be sure. So I think we are tracking a lot better than I expected at this point.
Okay.
But look, I have some deeper thoughts on that, but Rob, quickly, your view.
The big view is I liked this too. What is interesting, though, is you saying that as it went on, you had this feeling, because my biggest gripe that was pulling me out of it happened near the start, and then I went with the episode, and then just at the end, there was something that annoyed me as well. But we'll get to that. I was actually pulled out of it at the start, Dave.
Yeah, what by?
Costumes.
Okay.
Now,
that's such a Rob thing to say.
Yeah. Look, my question is, does the TARDIS now provide outfits that are so suited to the outside world that they're identical? And they can even interoperate with the outside world, like the way the troopers' helmets fit their identical spacesuits perfectly. If that's the case, I'd love that covered with a line, because that's not been the experience of the TARDIS wardrobe before now. For one example, you think of that orange spacesuit that got worn in Tenant Era a few times. Matt Smith wore it at least once. Capaldi wore it. It was just a piece of kit in the TARDIS. It didn't magically change to suit what the spacesuits in their immediate environment might look like, which is what I can only assume the TARDIS wardrobe did here. Otherwise, it was a hell of a big coincidence that they were in exactly the same uniforms. And that was just going around and around in my head. Dave, what I would have done, I wouldn't have had that Goodies quick change wardrobe, copyright you last week for saying that, with the zany musical interlude. I would have had them go out into the corridor in their costumes from the previous adventure, because again, we'd moved straight on from the previous adventure. I'd have them look at those spacesuits hanging on the wall and the helmets, sort of look at one another, raise their eyebrows, and quietly pick some off the wall, sneak back into the TARDIS and get changed. That would have been brilliant. It would have been a really fun character moment for them too. But no, somehow the TARDIS wardrobe gave them spacesuits identical to the people they were about to meet. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I also found it a slightly bizarre moment, because it does seem, as you say, as though the TARDIS's quick change wardrobe has now got predictive abilities.
Yes.
Or the Doctor said, oh, we're in a spaceship of this planet from this era, therefore we need this tech. But it did seem just too easy, that, as you say, or too perfect. And, you know, unless we are actually now going to make a thing of this where the quick change cabinet does give them something, and at some point they go, oh, it's given us this. This makes no sense. This is a warning. I don't know. You know, I can sort of see RTD saying, you know, RTD's famous comment about the sonic screwdriver. The Doctor should be stopped by the plot, not by a door or a lock.
Yeah.
And I can sort of see him saying, well, you know, in order to get on with the plot, we just don't want to have messing around and getting into costumes. And it did make for that very quick-fire, quick-paced cold open, which led to them sort of jumping out of a spacecraft.
Yeah, yeah. I get all of that. I absolutely get all of that. But if the TARDIS is going to be magical now, and I'm okay with it, let me reinforce, I'm actually okay with it if it's going to be clairvoyant and magical now and scan the immediate surround and give them some clothing that will help them blend in. Okay, it's magical, but yeah, sure, let's go with it. But without sort of covering off on it and explaining that that's now a thing when it's never been a thing before, I just felt a little taken out of it.
Right, well, now that we've got that little gripe of yours out of the way, which is fairly inconsequential compared to the whole plot.
Oh, look, I agree with that too, you know.
Yeah, look, let's dive in a little bit deeper. I thought that the atmosphere in this was really good. I thought the way it was developed was really good. It looked really good. There's a lot of positive about this, and even at the points where I was frustrated quite considerably, I've got to say, with a few little plot moments, I was still brought back by the tension and the atmosphere. So that's why I say that this did work very well and I did enjoy it. It almost reminds me a little bit from last year of 73 Yards, in that it's a very well-crafted, very tense, very well-made, enjoyable to watch 45 minutes of television. However, in the case of 73 Yards, the moment the credits smashed in, I was like, hang on, is that it? What was all that about? Whereas in this one, that frustration was actually permeating before we even got to the credits. There were a number of moments of, why didn't you just say that before? Why didn't you just do this? Why is that happening? What's going on here? That makes no sense. And it's a great RTD episode to watch with the heart. I found that with the head, this just not fell apart, that's the wrong word, because I enjoyed it. There were problems.
Okay. I was thinking, and this is genuine, I'm not making this up for the sake of the podcast, I was thinking very early into the episode, this feels very Tenant Era. I know this kind of episode. It looks like a Tenant episode. Are we in 2008? I swear. And then they dropped in the midnight callback. I was like, aha, this is quite a deliberate thing. So I was in the groove, Dave. Once we got past the costume thing, and I put that at the back of my mind, I was enjoying this from the start.
It's interesting, Rob. I'm looking over my notes here, and I have next to word of the week the word well crossed out, and then I've replaced it with return later on, because about halfway through I did think, this is RTD once again going back to the well.
Oh, that would have been a clever one.
You know, it's perhaps a little bit unfortunate in the one where he's going back to the well in a number of ways. He's called it the well. I did sort of change that because I had more to say on the other one. But yes, it wasn't just that he's gone back to the Midnight Well, which I think we have to talk about in a moment. But yes, atmospherically he did go back, and I did get Impossible Planet vibes. Mm-hmm. Not so much from the plot, although again, you know, creepy metaphysical being out there haunting a task force of attractive young actors, like, you know, it is very Impossible Planet. But the set design, the corridors, etc., were very Impossible Planet. So yeah, I can see where you got those vibes. Absolutely. Yeah,
and I liked how the episode started to really lean into horror. Not just the something's behind me angle, which is spooky, yeah. But when people started to get thrown around violently, and we learn how half these people had all their bones broken and all of this, I thought, okay, we've gone from that comedic quick change to the Britney Spears music to now being tossed around and bones are being smashed. This is quite a shift, but I'm here for it. I'd have been happy if the whole episode had a darker tone like that, quite honestly. You know, let's scare the kids watching this, Dave. It's what they want. Let's scare the kids out there.
Yeah, that scary creep factor absolutely worked really, really well. Was it quite as clever as the creep factor in Midnight? I don't think it probably was. No. Although I'm saying that, you know, with the benefit of 15 years of letting Midnight mature on the palette. And I've said before, Midnight's one of those episodes that every time I watch it, I appreciate it just a little bit more. It's a really, really good episode. Having said all that, Rob, I think this perhaps would have been a stronger episode if it wasn't a direct sequel to Midnight.
Okay, tell me more.
So I think that, yes, the reveal moment was a cool moment, and he used to be covered in diamonds. Again, I mentioned in episode 1 of our hot takes for this season, the whole RTD, no, it'll be it'll be a great reel, a 30-second reel, and the kids will all love it. It'll be on TikTok. Doctor, it should be on TikTok now. I can imagine that moment being a TikTok moment. Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, lovely. Yeah, sure, okay, fine. And that was a lot. And even I was sort of like, oh, what's this past reference? Oh, that's right. It could be a new series reference, of course. The new series is now old enough to have callbacks, yes. But if you're going to do a sequel, there are a couple of things that you want to do. Either you do something like Jaws 2 or Aliens, where you say, right, having spent the first episode slowly establishing the monster, you now go, right, we all know what the monster is, let's do a lot of the monster. This wasn't that. Or you say, having had this very mysterious open end to the first one, in the sequel we're now going to explore that and go and work out what that's all about. In this case, we kind of spent half the episode to get to the fact that this was a sequel, and then we didn't really do anything bigger, nor did we really discover anything. And also, I think that it was a cheat because the rules were now different, because this monster goes from a thing that possesses you and can think almost to the point of thinking ahead of you, to a thing that stands behind you and gets grumpy for no apparent or practically explored reason, followed by sort of a whole bunch of rules. Oh, if you kill me, it jumps to you. If you do this, it does that. And I was like, I don't remember any of these rules from Midnight. They all seemed a little bit arbitrary. And that, to me, was frustrating. Again, carried through because the tension was so well done. But in my mind, I'm going, well, why is that a rule now? And how does that work? And what's that all about? And
it was grumpy, Dave. It was grumpy because it had been waiting 400,000 years. And again, we have a ridiculous use of time in Doctor Who. 400,000 years is a stupid amount of time to use there. It should have been something like, 10,000 at the most. 10,000 years is a long time.
Yeah. Look, RTD's always done that. You go back to the Eccleston series where things were sort of, 500,000 years in the future, and you go, look, that's
it's stupid.
Stupid, but look, that's an RTD thing. Fine, whatever. Yeah. Did any of that register for you or detract for you, Rob, or were you properly in the groove?
I did make a note. I'm just looking, if you've seen my handwriting, you'll know what this is like, because I write it in the dark as well. I've written, how does she know the rules?
Yeah, okay.
Because she was sort of monologuing about it and doing exposition about how all this works. Is it because she just observed what was happening with other people, and then when it was happening to her, and then she shot someone who tried to attack her, were they trying to attack the monster behind her, or were they trying to attack her thinking that she was the monster? Or so many questions, Dave.
Yeah, and that sort of brings me to my other big frustration, which was the character of Alice. And I've got to say, as somebody who went to a lot of nightclubs in the late 90s, every time they'd urgently say Alice, all I wanted to say was, Alice? Who the f*** is Alice?
Oh, I better get the bleeper out.
Yeah, sorry. But that was distracting me. It's funny that you said that this leaned into horror, because it absolutely did, including that horror cliche of antagonist and protagonist doing really dumb things. Because if you're Alice, surely when they say what went on, you say, right, the following things happened, and I observed it started with them doing this, and then it proceeded to do this, and then suddenly there was a creature that had these rules, yada, yada, yada. Instead, she's like, no, I don't know what happened, yada, yada, yada. And then sort of about halfway through, she's like, oh, yes, this is how it started. Yeah. I was sitting there, well, if that's how it started, tell us 10 minutes ago before it starts so we know what to watch out for. Yeah. Or when Belinda is looking at it, she's going, what, can you see something behind me? Don't go, oh, my goodness, there's something behind me. Go, yep, I know what's going on. There is a thing behind me, Belinda. Instead, she's just lets everybody go, oh, that was that. Look, maybe, Rob, this was a very clever satire of bad horror. Also possible, it was just bad horror.
Well, I said there was something, I talked about the costumes earlier, and I said, and that at the end there was something that threw me out. And it was an element of bad horror, though. It's the cheesy bit at the end, the, oh no, the creature's still on the ship moment. And I know that's a classic sort of horror ending, but when we stop and think about it, it undercuts Shire's sacrifice massively. It's like, just 5 minutes ago, we found a way to dispatch the monster. Shire's committed this ultimate sacrifice. She's jumped down a bottomless pit. But somehow it's come back up. It's bypassed everyone. It's got onto the ship. And I get that that's a tropey sort of horror ending. but it was cheesy, and I just think it undercut that great sacrifice. Can we just have an ending where something just remains what it is and not have to have a ha-ha rug pull moment?
Yeah, and maybe that does lead into my theory that this is a deliberate satire of horror and horror cliches, because you're right, that absolutely was a horror cliche.
Maybe it just seems so cheap, and it also means Alice hasn't really escaped. She's probably now going to die on the ship with the rest of them. It seems quite mean-spirited writing to me.
Yeah, I didn't mind that, actually. I thought that if you're going to go full horror and be grim and gruesome, then sure, go down that path. And having just done a sequel to Midnight, maybe this is RTD's way of saying, and maybe I'll be back here again in 15 years, who knows. So no, I've got to say, of all the things that annoyed me, that wasn't one.
Yeah, and look, I get that too. The creature's now on a spaceship. It'll be floating through space. Some guys will come to junk the ship or something in 10,000 years. No, sorry, it's RTD. 5 million years' time, they'll come to junk the ship. And they'll get infected by the monster.
I wouldn't be shocked if the crew decide to go into cryostasis, and at some point they're all revived along with the monster. I just don't know where I could have pulled that from.
Oh, God, that'd make a great movie, wouldn't it?
Would make a great movie, yes.
Dave, Shooty cries again, and I saw recently RTD saying, you don't give someone like Shooty notes on whether they should cry or not. And I thought, what absolute rot, As I've said on X before now, assuming this is Shooty's choice, and it's not actually written in the script like, the doctor looks and cries or whatever, you would surely pass Shooty the note that by crying in every episode, it's diminishing what it means for the character to cry, and even worse, it becomes this running gag. And when it's a running gag, it doesn't have any dramatic meaning anyway. It just becomes a, here it comes again moment, and here it was again.
Yeah, I have a big plus and a big minus column with Shooty's Doctor in this, and that just continues a pattern that seems to have existing across his time as the Doctor. I do agree with you. I didn't mind the crying so much in the exact moment, because I thought, this is the moment where the sequel tells us a bit more about the thing, and we're going to now add some depth and dimension to it, and this is going to spin us off for the last act of the episode. I thought it was going to be, this isn't what we thought, it's telling me a story of loss and woe and tragedy, and there's a reason why the Doctor's emoting. But that didn't happen, so I thought, okay, no, it was just a wasted Shooty cries again moment.
Yeah. There it is.
Look, there was a moment here when I wrote down, why is the Doctor grinning like a gormless idiot? And that was really annoying. Plus, the usual babe stuff. And I'm just really glad that soldier told him off for that. That soldier was totally in sync with me at that moment.
Yep.
But Shooty is a very good actor. And some of those later moments when he's explaining stuff to people, his sense of desperation, he's conveying of that sense of helplessness when he can feel the command changing in the soldiers, and his control over them is diminishing to the point of being lost, and now he's out of control, and now he's helpless to watch circumstances go on, and he knows this is going to result in people dying, but he can't stop it. I felt that moment. Gatwa's performance sold that moment. And so I went from moments of, Gatwa's performance is really annoying me. Why is he grinning like a gormless idiot and saying babe again, to, he's a good actor.
Yeah, I think he was really solid here. I think he did everything we expect of him as the Doctor. I can't say it's tour de force and he was doing something really unique, like this time last year in Boom, where he had to stand still and sort of act while standing still. That was quite interesting. But aside from a few over-the-top lines here and there, which I know can grate on people because they just don't fit with his past incarnations, I'd really challenge anyone to say this was a poor Doctor performance on the whole.
No, it certainly wasn't a bad performance. My problem with Gatwa's Doctor, as I explained a bit in the first episode of the season, is that I think there are moments, and it was more so in the first episode than it's been since, so I give him that, but there are moments when his conception of the Doctor, or potentially RTD's conception of the Doctor, is too modern and in the moment for my taste.
I get it.
Yeah.
While we're on Shooty, let's talk Varida. I think she's good with what she's been given. But I think Belinda's been inconsistent across these 3 eps. In the first hot take, I was noting how she was a bit sour, a bit unlikable almost, a bit spiky. And that was clearly by design, but in that second ep, she seemed to really enjoy dressing up and having an adventure. She's even kissing the Doctor's hands at the end. I mean, what's with that? Shooty was doing that with her in this episode. That's not typical behaviour with someone you barely know. Seemed quite bizarre last week in particular. But then this week starts, and she's back to being a bit worried and a bit weird. And I thought, oh, guys, can we stick on the characterisation here?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I noted that we are very clearly doing a continuing story. So
yes.
for Belinda, this has been hours, not even weeks. It's one continuing story, and I'm very sorry, Big Finish, but there's no room to put something in the middle of those ones.
No, not yet.
For those listeners who have listened regularly to our monthly show over the last year, we have regularly done sort of Rumour Watch and Gatwa Watch and all the rest of it. And one of the big rumours that came out of that was that Willie Gibson departed from the show in a manner that was, if not acrimonious, certainly sudden and unplanned. And I think that the writing of Belinda does tend to affirm that a bit for me because she does feel a bit like one of those 60s companions that has been quickly inserted into the TARDIS crew and almost getting some other people's lines with a couple of, make sure they do this sort of thing because that's their character moment in there. And this, to me, did feel a bit like Belinda by numbers.
Yeah.
You know, there's the moment of I don't trust the Doctor, but I think I'm willing to trust the Doctor. There's the moment of I'm a nurse, I'm going to do nursey stuff. Varida is really, really good. She conveyed fear really well. She did the Sarah Jane thing of being scared and brave at the same time, which is very hard to do. She's a really, really good actress. She works against Gatwa really, really well. So lots of positives there. I think she has engaged me and interested me more than Ruby Sunday did.
I agree.
And so again, this is a step up for this season. That's a very positive thing. But I do feel that, yes, this is a case of we haven't really thought out what this character is. We've just thrown her in because we need a new character. Oh, well, that line's too Ruby Sunday. We'll take it out. Oh, well, we need to give her something that... what's her character? She's a nurse. Quick, put in a nurse thing. I don't know. It just feels very emergency writing.
Agreed. A quick one from me, Dave. The lighting I felt was off in this episode. It wasn't overly bright, but it was bright. And in some of the sets, there were spotlights built in, so there was an in-universe reason for it. But whenever the action fell into shadow, even just for a moment, I thought, oh, this is much more atmospheric. I think Shooty was walking through a door at one stage and it got a bit darker, and I was like, oh, I wish the whole episode looked like that.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't have a problem.
Okay.
Very quickly from me, another very strong cold open. I think that the way that, the stuff in the TARDIS annoys me, as we've discussed, but the way they got in there, something's going on, they're jumping out of a spaceship, wow, okay, what's going on? Very strong cold open. RTD definitely knows how to write that, set the story up really well. But I'm going to note, last year I complained a lot about the sound mix, and it's been okay the last couple of episodes, but this was one where I'd had to really put the volume up to make sure I was hearing the dialogue over the background noise on a few occasions.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah.
Shall we go to the sports desk?
Oh, do we? Yes, of course we will.
Okay, here we are at the sports desk where we do our word of the week, play of the week, foul of the week, MVP of the week. Dave, your word of the week.
Look, my word of the week was return. I did originally have this as well. Return is probably a very similar sort of concept, but I added return because it is a return in a literal sense. It is the return to midnight, but it is a return to a lot of tropes. It is a return to the well in many ways. As I said, I'm enjoying this episode. I enjoyed the last episode, but all through this season, the biggest fault is that there is a lot that we have seen before, and this one is literally stuff that we have seen before, so it is a return metaphysically and literally.
I like it. I think it's better than my word of the week, which was Phantom, and I was being quite literal there. Something from the past is still haunting us today, so we have this returning character coming back after 400,000 years.
Yes, we have. And speaking of characters coming back after 400,000 years, Anita Dobson's back again. A shock horror.
Yeah, there she was.
Yeah, whatever.
Great. Do you want to continue on with Play of the Week, Dave?
My Play of the Week is the moment when the very good-looking 2IC took over the troops, and you had everything going on. And even though I knew exactly where this was going to go, and let's be honest, most of this plot was not difficult to work out. It was one of those moments where even though I knew how this was going to end up, this is going to be the big moment where everything sort of turns a bit J.G. Ballard, everything goes a bit messy, people are about to die, the 2IC is going to do something dumb now, he's in charge. But I don't care because suddenly I knew that this was going to be a very tense scene. Gatwa's performance was really good, the other actors' performances was really good. It was that mix of knowing, not just watching a car crash happen in slow motion, but seeing the car crash about to happen and not being able to stop it, and then watching it all. And it just was directed and performed so very, very well. I've thought, you know what? Even though I knew exactly what was going to happen, and this is a bit of a cliched moment, it's done so well. It shows that the tension is working, and that was a really good play.
Yeah, Christopher Chung is his name, playing Cassio. He was deeply unlikable, and I think that's what he was meant to be.
Yeah, unlikable, huh?
Yeah.
I just thought he was very pragmatic.
I think he's playing that irrational, don't trust your eyes, just hate the new guy sort of vibe, no matter how contrary everything might be around you. Just hate that new guy. I
thought he was playing the let's deal with facts, not supposition, let's be practical kind of guy.
Interesting.
Maybe this is a bit of a Rorschach's test, Rob, and it says a bit more about you and I than it does about him. I don't know.
Alrighty.
I must admit, Rob, we said during the last Hot Take last week that I was rushing off to see a movie, and the movie was Warfare, and that did deal with very similar themes and sort of different characters and different ways that soldiers can approach moments like that. So maybe I'm seeing something there.
Interesting.
Your play of the week, Rob?
My play of the week was The Sacrifice of Shire. It really sold it for me. The whole, it's my job. And she runs through the complex. We have the flashback to being a little girl. I know it's troweled on a bit thick. I know it's a bit cliched, but it still worked on me regardless, because deep down I am a bit of a sentimental bastard, Dave. Really.
Erwin, you are a sentimentalist. Yes, I'm just going green death on you for a moment there.
I try not to show it, though.
Your foul, Rob.
My foul, I spoke about the costumes earlier, and similar to last week where my foul was a fairly minor thing as well. I know the costume thing is a minor thing, so when I'm saying that's my foul, it shows that I really did, quite enjoy this episode on the whole.
Yep, very reasonable.
What about your foul?
My foul is something, again, we've already discussed. It is not the character of Alice per se, but the just horror cliche, why don't you just call the cops sort of, part of the character of Alice. You knew a whole lot more than you said you knew, and you didn't tell anybody, and you could have saved lives by doing that from the start, and there was no in-plot reason for you not to do it. There wasn't even the Phantom's controlling me and it won't let me say, it was just, no, you're just being willfully dumb because the plot needs us to not know this for another 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's a really great shout, Dave. And although I did have the how does she know the rules thing in my notes, I hadn't taken it through to its logical conclusion, which is precisely that. So that's a really great shout.
Thank you.
And take us through to your MVP.
Yes, my play of the week could be a snap here, Rob. Yeah. I'm going for Killeen Dunn. I don't know whether she's a Killeen or a Quilleen, depending on what part of Ireland she's from. But
Keelan, maybe.
Keelan or Queelan? Yes. Very different pronunciations depending on what part of Ireland you're from. But Queelan, Miss Dunn,
yes.
I thought was just excellent. She did everything she needed to. She was in command, had command presence. When things turned against her, she sold that sense of, I know that I'm in trouble now, but I'm not going to let it show too much. She sold the sacrifice well. She sold a lot of moments well. I just thought it was a really, really strong guest performance, and it's rare I give it to a guest performance, but I thought she absolutely earned it.
Snap.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case.
She was really good.
She was really, really good, yeah.
Yeah. For an overall mark?
I'm going to go with a B.
Yeah.
But this is definitely one that when we come back for our cold take and our season wrap, that could slide up or down depending on how this sits in the palette and how much I care about the faults. It's a really, really hard one to judge because for 45 minutes I was absolutely entertained and sold on a really cool, scary sci-fi world. I was absolutely sold, but I was bugged a lot by some unnecessary faults and cliches. So a B, but with a lot of thought to come.
Yeah, I think some marks will shift around at the end of the season when we do the wrap show. For me, it's an 8 out of 10, which is what I gave last week's episode as well. But I find this a completely different episode to last week. And in some ways, I was more entertained this week than last week. But I don't feel I can give it a higher score. I'm really a bit conflicted there. So it's a great example of how this score or last week's might change in the future. But for now, it's an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I can't score The Well as highly as I did Lux because I enjoyed them both whilst watching them, but with Lux, again, it was a case of I got to the end and I thought, I really enjoyed that, but hang on, what was that about? What was that about and why did that happen? Whereas with this one, it was during the episode I've gone, why is this happening and what? So it didn't quite hold quite as well as Lux.
Alright, so next time we have Lucky Day by Pete McTighe, he of Mutual Friend fame for you, Dave. And
yes,
I think it's important to note that as the episode will be going out, just as polling is closing in the eastern states of Australia, and it's a big federal election that evening, we won't be sitting down to record a hot take. It may be another 24 hours, 48 hours, who knows, but don't panic, we will be doing some sort of take, it just won't be hot. Yeah. That's all I've got to say.
Well, sorry, it will be hot in the sense that we will record as soon as we've watched it, or at least that'll be the case for me. It's just a case of it may take a day or two for certainly me to watch it.
That's a great point. Whereas for me, I'll probably still watch it at 5 p.m. on Saturday because I'll be at home. I'll be fine.
Well, as long as you vote before 6 p.m, Rob.
I'll have to do that, yes. I was planning on going at 5:30. That's not going to work, is it? No.
No. So vote and then watch Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
Fair enough. So yes, listeners, just because the day will not be my own on election day, it's I'll be working until probably the small hours of the night, I suspect. We'll record this whenever I get to watch it. I hope it'll be Sunday afternoon. Worst case, be Monday night.
Yeah, but we will get there.
We will get there. Apologies for that in advance. But until then, I've been Dave.
And I've been Rob.
And we'll speak again soonish. Well, we'll speak again tomorrow, Rob, because our monthly show's dropping.
That's right. Tune in for that, folks. Father
Exciting.
Time.
No worries. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.